Hello, this is Crystal from the Willing Vessel podcast. In my family at Christmas time, we do candy. And the one that I specifically am known for is my chocolate covered cherries. So chocolate covered cherries take a lot of different steps to make. They're not hard, they just take a lot of steps and they can be time consuming, but I just break those steps down and do each step whenever I have the time set aside, can grab a minute. So what you want for the first part is you need a stick of butter at room temperature, a couple of pounds of powdered sugar, and a can of Eagle brand milk. And you just mix all of that together. Super simple. Let me grab need my handy scraper. All right. Put that in there. Eagle brown milk. Start blending that together, and then you want to slowly add in your powdered sugar or you will have a big powdery mess. So the first time I had homemade chocolate covered cherries was when I was in grade school. A boy that was sweet on me brought me some at Valentine's Day and I loved them. But then when I tried store-bought chocolate covered cherries, I didn't care for them too much. So whenever I got married and on my own and we started experimenting with my own recipes, I definitely make those that my mama made. But I wanted to add something to it as well. Chocolate covered cherries definitely became one of those ones that I started. And then, I think my family might disown me if I didn't make these one year. Everybody loves them. They make great Christmas gifts. And they are so much better than anything you'll ever buy in a store. So just slowly adding in that powdered sugar till it gets kind of incorporated. So some other things that we make at Christmas time is, of course, fudge. I make peanut butter balls and then Martha Washington candy. The inside of Martha Washington candy is actually very similar to that you do for chocolate covered cherries. The difference between the two is you need to make your chocolate covered cherries well in advance of when you want to eat them. They taste good immediately, but you want to give them time to let those cherries ferment and get all that ooey gooey goodness inside of that chocolate. So I generally make these the weekend after Thanksgiving so that I have them ready by Christmas. This year I am making them a little bit early because we are exchanging Christmas gifts with part of my family at Thanksgiving. So these will be good to go in 2 weeks after you get them all together. But they do need to ferment for at least 2 weeks and you'll have to hide them. I hide them in my house because my kids will eat them because, like I said, they taste good immediately, but they just get better as the longer they sit. So it starts to make a pretty stiff dough. I did my whisk attachment for my KitchenAid, but you can do a dough hook as well. I just had the whisk on here already, and it doesn't matter. All right, let's scrape the sides, get all of this mixed well. It's for family, not for sale. I can drop some, throw it back in there, no biggie. And when it's for family, I do lick my fingers. But since I also give this away to my pastors and other people, I try to not lick my fingers and all of that when I'm cooking. I'm not saying I 100% don't, but I try not to. All right. So we have this dough is all together. Hold on one second and I'll show it to you. And you want to let this sit for at least an hour. So you want it in a cool, dry place. I just throw a towel over this. And like I said, I tend to hide my stages. So I'm gonna actually have this in the dining room. My kids don't know I'm making these today. But you want it to sit for at least an hour, but it'll actually be several hours. We're gonna go run and do errands, and I will come back whenever I have the time to cover the cherries. So y'all come back for the next step. All right, welcome back to my kitchen. This is for part 2 of making our chocolate covered cherries. Yesterday, we blended a stick of butter, a can of sweetened condensed milk, and 2 pounds of powdered sugar. You have to let that set for at least an hour, but as I said, life happens. We ended up not getting back until late yesterday, so I didn't get to it, and it's actually late afternoon the next day, and that's perfectly fine. It's going to be several days. You can just pop this in the fridge and it will be fine. So what you need for this step is your maraschino cherries. I do prefer the ones with the stem on. It just makes it easier for dipping, and then when you make as many candies as I do, you know exactly that the ones with the stems are the cherries. You'll also need your cookie sheets lined with wax paper, parchment paper, some powdered sugar to help with the stickiness on your hands, a colander to drain your cherries, and of course, the gooiness you made yesterday. So let's get started. I'm going to drain the cherries. Sometimes I will save the juice for my children. They like to put them in their drinks and things like that. I am not doing that today. I go ahead and I drain the 2 jars, and I'll leave the 3rd jar just to see how it goes. You may want to put your apron on. The powdered sugar and everything, this can get a bit messy, or maybe it's just me. I might be a messy cook. All right, so go ahead and powder sugar your hands. I almost didn't think I was going to get to do this. I did not have any powdered sugar, but I figured out how to make some. It was actually pretty easy. I just put some sugar in my NutriBullet and blended it up really good. Actually, I don't think what we have is a NutriBullet, but okay. So then, I will repeat that, showing you exactly what the steps, but I'm basically wrapping the dough around the cherry. So you have your stem, you take it. You want to spoon up, maybe nickel size, quarter size. You'll just get to where you play with it. And then it's like playing with Play-Doh. You kind of flatten it out to about the size of a quarter. This is also going to depend on the top size of your cherries. Then you're going to take your cherry and your flattened dough, and then you just take and you work it around. The dough gets softer as you work on it. You don't want too much dough. It'll get really large for one thing, but they also won't get as gooey. So there you go. You have your dough wrapped cherry, and you just keep doing this until I run out of dough. And like I said, this is a lot of steps, but none of the steps are hard to do. So we'll take and go ahead and wrap all of these up, and then you can come back and I'll show you how to dip them in the chocolate. Come back soon. Couple of things thought about as I was going along here recording. covering my cherries. So whenever you have your flat piece, the easiest way to do it is almost like you're wrapping a towel around the shoulders. So like your towel around the shoulders, wrap it around at the top and then go down the bottom, pinch that piece off. And then you have it wrapped. Another thing, some of them are really juicy and they'll be real liquidy and messy, so the dough won't kind of stick as well. So one thing you can do is use your powdered sugar. So if you have one that is like that, so see here again, I'm taking towel, shoulders, wrap it around the top there, pinch the bottom, and see how it's kind of getting a little juicy. Well, sometimes that makes it just kind of melt off. You just take your powdered sugar, dab that on there, and it helps soak up some of that juice and gets it to stick together, so you'll actually form your whole ball. So I've definitely used all of my 3 jars. I think I'm actually going to need a 4th jar this time. These cherries are pretty small. Another thing you'll do after this is chill the cherries. That will help you to dip them in the chocolate later. So you can pop them in the fridge, or if it's gonna be, you can do it for the freezer too, but just only if it's only gonna be for a little while. If you're going to have to leave it till the next day to dip them, you don't wanna freeze your cherries. If you can help it. The only place you have is the freezer, then use the freezer. All right, so now we are on to step 3 of our chocolate covered cherries, and that is doing the chocolate. So what you will need to do is a double boiler. I just have a saucepan of water here, and then a glass bowl on top to melt my wax and chocolate. And yes, I said wax. You'll need some paraffin wax. This is edible wax. You will not taste it. You will not even know that it's in there, but that is what makes that hard shell around your chocolate candy. You'll never know it's there, and it is safe and to eat. So I have half a bar of wax in here. This comes in bars inside of here, and you just cut it in half. And then I have 2 cups of chocolate chips. You want to use semi-sweet. The inside is very sweet, so you'll want to use a semi-sweet chocolate to balance it out. And as you see, I put the wax in there first. That takes the longest to melt, and that way I can do other things while that's going on. Then I add the chocolate. Chocolate is very delicate. That is why you need to use a double boiler, and you do want to keep it stirring as you do it so that it does not burn. Now I have my cherries over here. They did sit in the fridge overnight, so I'm just going to take and hold it by the stem, dip it in the chocolate, and there we go. Super simple. And so yummy and so beautiful. So after I get all of these dipped, I will put them in just a Tupperware container. You can put them in layers. You want to line each layer with wax paper. And I do use a separate cookie sheet with wax paper to put because my other cookie sheets will have powdered sugar and things on them, so I get a clean one. And then you'll store them in a cool, dry place. Do not refrigerate. Do not. No refrigeration. You want them to ferment. You want the cherries to ferment. They sit, and that's when that ooiness of the inside will occur. So you need to let them sit at least 2 weeks in a cool, dry place. And Me, I have to hide them. I've hidden them in my closet, in my office, sometimes in the dining room, but I have to hide them, or because they will taste good. Them, like right now, delicious, really good. But they do get better with age. You want that ooiness in the inside where everything's just kind of gooing out. And that takes 2 weeks of fermentation. And then they're good for up to a month or so. I don't know. They never last that long. But like I said, I have to hide them from my boys and my husband. When I say boys, I'm including him. And then they are good after 2 weeks. They make great gifts. They have been given as Christmas gifts for years in my family, and they are very excited to get them. Now they do expect it, but they are very disappointed if I wouldn't have them. So like I said, it's a lot of steps. I do not normally do this in 3 days. That's just the way this weekend has worked out. Used to, I would mix up the first part of the dough, take the kids to school, come back. I would do the cover the cherries, put them into chill, have lunch. That afternoon, I would cover them in chocolate. So it's definitely can be done in a day. It's just this weekend, it has worked out where it has taken 3 days. But you know what? That's okay. You just work these steps in to where you can get them done. Notice I am stirring the chocolate the entire time. This is important. We don't want our chocolate to burn. But I really do hope you will try to make these chocolate covered cherries. They are very delicious. But I do warn you, once you make them, people are going to want you to continue to make them. So y'all have a blessed day. I pray that your Christmas is very merry, and you always remember that Jesus is the reason.